I started drawing when I was a kid. As long as I can remember, I was drawing. Art was always my main subject. That's all I wanted to do. My dad wanted me to go into engineering or mechanical stuff, and I tried labouring jobs and working, and I got a job in the government insurance office, of all things, in the accounts department, which was so foreign. And I lasted 6 months, had a meltdown in there and walked out the door. But then I went and signed up for art school, the National Art School in Sydney. So it's a 4-year full-time course. Because I did walk out of the job, I ended up having to walk out of the house too, because Dad wanted nothing to do with me then. So I was about 19 or 20 by that stage. So I ended up renting a house in Sydney, just near the college. I worked mornings and nights to put myself through school. Best 8 hours of my day was going to art school. So that was 5 days a week, every day, painting in my own environment, just full of artists. It was bloody great. In my final years of art school, I was picked up as one of the up-and-coming young artists of Sydney. So I was exhibiting in 2 of the major Sydney galleries, and I thought, this is pretty good. I think I could really make a living out of this, because I was selling a few bits and pieces. Not a lot, but I was selling things. And I still kept my morning and night jobs. I didn't change my routine, but I still painted every day. This is where it all started to fall apart. One of these ladies came in after about 3 months, and I'm doing a show for her, I'm getting it all ready. And she walks in, she goes, and she starts all this, I don't know, we've got other artists like you in our stable. Do you reckon you could just, and she never told me what, she said, do you reckon you could just, and all this sort of carry on. I'm thinking, what does she want? So she's left, and I'm there, still in my studio, but I started to doubt myself. That was the biggest problem. Through her conversation, the next 3 months, I'm trying to paint for her then to see what she wanted, not knowing exactly what she wanted. Anyway, she came back again, a couple of months later, to see how I was going. By this time, I was so confused. And then she started all that carry on again. And I just went, if you reckon you're so good at this, you do the paintings. Yeah. And that was it. I just packed up and left. And I left Sydney. I went over to Western Australia, and I just sort of stopped painting. I went overseas for 4 years, and while I was overseas, I was drawing all the time. I had a little book, and I was just drawing in it and trying to get jobs that aligned with art. I was printing T-shirts in Austria and doing a bit of sign writing. So by the time I got back to Australia, I'm just turning 30 then. And I thought, right, the happiest I ever was when I was painting and when I was living in India. Free as anything. It was so good. And I thought, I can live overseas. I can live in Australia in a car. I don't need a passport. I can always get a job. And I did that. I just packed up my car. And I made that big decision when I was 30. I said, I'm going to go and be an artist. And I believed it strongly. That's what I was going to do, be an artist. And I ended up settling in Lightning Ridge. I built a studio there, just on an opal mining field, $12.50 a year for the rent. So I could afford it. Painting murals, painting things on walls. People would go, geez, who did that? And that really helped, because people are saying, can you paint a picture of a dog or my cat or this? And I did it, because I needed to do it. Or can you paint a sign for me? I did it.
And what was the first one in town?
I was of some miners standing there looking at some opal. It would have been about 1984 or 5.
Yeah, 84. So that's cool to see that. You don't see that on a mural these days, man.
Nah.
Yeah.
Nah. Well, and that's still there. Anytime I do a mural, then there's young kids that want to paint. I get them in, and I say, right, I grab a brush. I've got a few young kids through that are still painting now. Probably 8 years ago, I first came down to Melbourne. I came down for a holiday, and we spent 3 days in Fitzroy here, just wandering the lanes, and I couldn't believe the quality of the artists. I started painting their paintings on my paintings in Lightning Ridge. I have an old car, and I'd put some famous street artist on it, like a Caffeine or Roan or one of those things. A couple of years later, I was a bit of a lost end of what we do for Christmas, because it's all hot at Lightning Ridge. It's in the 40s. You don't want to be there. And I said to Vic, let's go to Melbourne. I wanted to paint in the streets. So we packed up the dog and rented a house for 2 months down here and just started painting. And I paint with a lot of guys, yourself, and well, mainly you.
Yeah.
but we get on good,
And that's what's cool too, is everybody really respects your work. A lot of the times, if like a brush painter ends up in a laneway or something, it may not last too long. I guess it translates, like the emus smoking joints and hanging out, and it's like perfect for the streets. You're obviously painting those emus before you came. Did the laneways change the way they looked, or they stayed pretty similar?
Look, they just developed more, yeah. But when I came down here, it was just, the emus stood out to me. Everybody says to me, is that an ostrich, mate? And I go, no. Yeah. Ostriches are from Africa. Yeah. Emus are on the coat of arms, But anyway, he developed. So instead of doing the same one all the time, he could be a punk or he could be a goth, Thanks to you, I've just done an essay.
Yeah. Do you remember what the first wall was that you did here?
Yeah. It was in Young Street, just down off Gertrude Street. So I painted an emu there with a stick in his mouth and a couple of galahs sitting on it. When you look down the lane, it was on the end door, which is still there in 2000 and 19, I think I did that. And the next one would have been the one in Gertrude Street on the French restaurant there, next to Jimmy Deviate. It's got a French emu with a French cigarette and frogs on his head, you know, 'cause well, they eat them, frogs' legs and stuff.
Well, how did you get this wall that we just did?
Remember we did another community wall around the street. He emailed me and said, would you want to paint this wall? Knowing that you and me like to paint walls, I just took it on. And that's when the Esche made his first appearance.
Yeah. Do you reckon he'll end up in future ones?
I've got another one. Yeah,
Oh,
I've drawn a front on one of him. Yeah, he's going to do it. But the thing with the two rats, here's a good story. The guy that owns the house, he's a partner with another builder. They're both carpenters. And his wife calls them the two rats.
Oh, really?
Fair income, yeah. So
that's cool.
He just thinks that's all about him.
Yeah. Yeah, I was questioning what they think about the rats, so it's good that they put a positive thing on it. Is there like one particular thing that you're like more focused on at the moment?
I've been doing a lot of murals and street art in the last couple of years, and I'm going back into the studio a bit. Prior to coming down here this time, I painted 2 full months in the studio and did 8 pieces. And when you're locked in the studio for a long period, it's just you, and you. You just get too inward. It's a joy to come down here. Now, this is like a holiday for me, just painting in the street, because it's painting with guys like you and meeting people and interactions. You know, there's all sorts of people wandering past, which is, it's exciting. After I get back to the end of next month, I'm doing a trip out to the middle of Australia, across Australia actually, and they're pretty remote dirt tracks too. So it's just you sort of camping and living out there, but it comes from the experience of being there. If I'm out there and there's old ruins and things like that, or an old car, I'll just stop and see it. There's no one there. It's just flat. It's just so beautiful. So I'll get out, walk around that, and iPhone. Just take my phone. Lots of shots all around it, look at it. And what happens around there then is animals come in, or birds, or there's an eagle, or there's a big goanna or something. So when I get back, I've got thousands of shots on my phone. I'll look through my stuff and compose a painting, and I date it then. And so in another 30 years, that car will be gone. So I've captured a little bit of history and a little bit of story about outback Australia. That's my main thing. I like to put a story to my paintings.
Yeah.
And they're all individual. So I need to keep doing trips to keep finding more of these old things and the history that they're about. And this art career that I established out there, probably a 20-year apprenticeship with no money, busted ass, but the love of art kept me going. There was nothing else I wanted to do. And I'm still the same. You know, people say, I'm getting a bit older. You're going to retire? And I'm going, and?
Yeah, retire and do what?
Take up painting?
Yeah.
So I'll stop painting when I fall over. That'll be it. And even then I'll try and work out how to paint.
Yeah. For the like younger artists or anybody who wants to get into it or anything, is there anything in particular you'd say was like a main part of advice?
The simplest thing is don't be influenced, do it for yourself and do what's in your own heart. Keep your style, because there's going to be so many people tell you the way to do it. You could end up like what happened to me, totally confused, and abandon it. And then you could unfortunately end up in another job doing something you don't like, doing that for 40 years, retire, and you're just going to think, I've had a shit life, you know. To young people, whether it be dancing, theatre, anything in the arts, follow your heart. That's the main thing. Just do it for yourself.